Welcome back to Media 7. At the end of 1992, in the least propitious of economic times, a new magazine was launched, a magazine for, by and about Māori, Mana magazine. Since then, 88 issues with their distinctive photographic covers have been published. Stories have been told and sometimes broken, but a New Zealand Herald report this week seemed to signal the end of an era. Mana was for sale. But is it? With me now is the magazine's editor and part owner, Derek Fox. Welcome, Derek. Now, well, let's cut to the chase. The obvious question, is Mana for sale?
Well, I suppose anything's for sale, isn't it? Isn't that what they say? Anything's for sale. But Mana's not particularly for sale. In the last 18 months rather, we have had 3 people approach us, or organisations, to say we'd like to talk to you about buying the magazine.
So rather than the reverse, rather than you going out and saying...
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the damaging things that's occurred, is that the suggestion is we're out there standing on the street corner. Far from it. I mean, you know, issue 88 will be out in a couple of days, and issue 89 will be out in 2 months, and issue 90 will be out in another 2 months after that.
The story also said that you tried to sell it last year for $1 million. Is there anything in that?
No, I'm not going to say what the amount was. People came and approached me about purchasing the magazines, 3 groups. And they came, and one of them talked for quite a long time and then went away. And another one, the other 2 came, talked briefly, and we haven't seen them since. I hasten to add that I haven't heard a dicky bird from Willie Jackson, so, you know, if Willie's got $1 million, you know, we can at least talk about that. Yeah. We can talk about that as a deposit, you know, if he's...
Well, without identifying them, what kinds of people were interested in the magazine?
Well, I think Mana's the sort of magazine that, at least in my view, it has sort of, it's a special type of magazine. And I guess the sort of people that came and talked to us were people who had an interest in Māori things. They were interested in the brand, because it's a strong brand, Mana magazine. And they were interested in maybe reaching the particular audience that Mana reaches.
Who is that audience? Who are your readers?
Well, Mana magazine's, I think 60%, most of the people who buy magazines like Mana magazine, like most magazines, tend to be women. We have, I think 61% of them identified as being Māori, so 39% aren't. They're people who have quite good spending power. They had people from age, by and large, I think 25 through to 59 was the bulk. They were people who tended to have had some form of tertiary education. They had combined incomes that went from somewhere like 43,000, household income of 43,000 through to, I think it was 80,000 or something like that. So, you know, in that middle area.
What kind of advertisers are attracted to that audience?
Well, you'd think a lot of advertisers would be, because Mana magazine has got up to about 140,000+ readers. It goes up and down a little bit, and it's down a bit at the moment, like everything is. But one would have thought that was a very good, and with people like I've just described, that's something that a lot of advertisers should be wanting to put their products in front of. Not the case. We've had devil of a job sort of getting what you might call mainstream advertisers, you know. I would have thought a bank might be interested in those people, an airline might be interested in them, oil companies might be interested in them, car companies might be interested in them, but they tend not to be.
On the other hand, you have had traditionally a lot of government agencies and public agencies advertising.
And there are people who feel they need to get in contact with Māori, and so some of them, there'll be a lot of tertiary organisations interested in persuading Māori to go to their particular university or to do their particular, you know, whatever it is they have.
Well, would you say it's characteristic of Mana to tell positive stories? Because it's, I don't think it could ever be called scurrilous.
Well, yeah. No, Mana would tend to tell, and the whole point about Mana is, as you said earlier, it was for Māori to tell their stories to other Māori, but to anyone else who's interested in hearing them. And you know, and that tends to be the case. If you look at the covers, that, you know, the ones you've got in front of you, you've got Phyllis Tarawhiti, who spent 11 years in the Bangkok Hilton, and actually, funnily enough, when that cover story came out, it's the only time I've had someone write in and say, I'm going to cancel my subscription because you shouldn't be telling stories like this. And they thought we were glorifying what she'd done. And if you read her own story, she doesn't glorify it at all. She says, don't do it.
How has the environment for both Māori media and Māori in the media changed, do you think, since you launched the magazine? Has it filled out?
Dramatically, and there are a lot more outlets. I mean, we now have Māori radio, and quite a lot of it around the place. We have Māori television. We have Television New Zealand, sort of either beefing up or edging back on its Māori content. And there are other magazines and other publications that are starting to show an interest in this particular market.
What stories are you most proud of?
I don't know whether I can pull out on any particular one, but I mean, the Phyllis story is a good story. The first interview ever done by Dame Te Atau Rangikahu was one that we got and had in Mana magazine. In fact, it was our biggest magazine. We had 130 pages, that particular issue, which was issue 50. But again, we got the first interview with her son, the new king. And there have been a range of stories like that. Willie Apiata, the Willie Apiata story.
It seems an appropriate place for the first interview with the new king to appear in your magazine.
Yeah, but the new king's quite a retiring sort of guy. I mean, he was, it took quite a lot. I mean, I'm not saying we got his arm up between his shoulder blades, but, it was sort of, a lot of times I spent talking to him and gradually getting him to do it.
How's business?
Well, we're trading in the black, which is what
because
a lot
I
of
would have thought,
publications
reading
would
that
like to
Herald
say.
story, I would have thought you were in trouble. That was the undertone of that story.
I haven't renewed the BMW. In fact, I don't have a BMW. I drive a Toyota truck. And so it's never been something about what it was for us. I mean, Mana magazine is really a cause. It's the place where you might want to go to find the Māori stories. And when I look back on what we've done, there's a huge body of work, going back through to 1992. And we're now starting to get people who ring up, and if they're doing a story, say, you would have done something on so-and-so, wouldn't you? Can we get a hold of that and have a look at it and use it as the basic research? Because a lot of the stuff we've done is really probably the first cut of contemporary Māori history. And that, in a way, may be what the magazine's legacy is.
And most of those issues are still available, aren't they? I was looking at your website. You can still order those issues.
We've got some that we've run out of. We've still got. We say you can no longer buy issue 1, but in fact we've got a few of those tucked away.
Yes, you do. Now, it might have been seen to be easier to make a more low-cost publication, to do it on cheaper paper, to not do these lovely covers. But was that part of the intention from the beginning, to make it a good-looking magazine?
The intention was that we were going to do a quality product, and that if there came a time when that quality product was no longer required, we'd stop doing it. As recently as yesterday, someone said to me, why don't you just do it on newsprint and just have, a few colour photos in it? Well, that may be a possibility. As a sort of a stunt or a gag or getting more appeal to it. But frankly, we have tried to produce a quality product, and we believe that that's what our readership deserves.
Is it expensive to put out this magazine?
Yeah, it's not cheap. Anyone in publishing will tell you that. But it probably costs between $80,000 and $100,000 an issue.
How many staff do you have?
Oh, heaps. Yeah,
you have a lot
300
of
or 400. No, we don't.
Right, yeah, well, I was going to... Oh, yeah.
We have one full-time person at the moment, and I get to really enjoy myself writing at weekends, at night. And we have contributors and others who help out. I haven't been on the payroll for a little while, and so that's why I say it's a cause.
Is it also fun? Because that's what I feel. I've done independent print publishing, and the money was reliably awful, but it was really rewarding.
Yes, it is. And just harking back to the first two parts you had in the program, there are people there who talked about going from print and going into television or going into the electronic media. I went the other way around. For me, this was I went from working on television initially, and doing some radio, and then getting involved in print. And I kind of treat it a little bit like a television program. I think that if you have some really good pictures to illustrate the story, and then you tell the story, it's frowned on by people who come up through print. They say you shouldn't do it like that, but I guess if you own the magazine, that's how you do it, if you think you want to do it that way.
Exactly, it's your magazine.
Yeah.
So what's in issue 88? What's on the cover? What's inside?
Issue 88, the cover story's about the Te Wānanga o Aotearoa, which is 25 years old. now. It's something that went from a corrugated tin shed on a rubbish dump at Te Awamutu to the biggest tertiary institution in this country. It's turned education on its head, not just Te Wānanga Aotearoa, but there are two other wānanga, Māori wānanga, that have students, and it's offered an enormous opportunity for second-time learners and for people who they were square pegs and round holes in the traditional, education system. And yet here are these people, and they are learning to know what is valuable knowledge and learning to know how to value that knowledge.
The Wānanga is an interesting story because they really went through the ringer of the mainstream media, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
So you see yourself as telling a different story about them?
Well, we're telling a story of enormous, and probably no different to this magazine, of enormous ability to absorb punishment and pain and to come out the other end. Because these are institutions. I mean, Te Wānanga Aotearoa's had something like 250,000 students through it. They have about 40,000 students. Even now, when they've had greatly reduced numbers, 40,000 students will go through their doors in the course of the year. They have 80 different locations around the country where you can study the wānanga. So it's not a matter of you being uprooted from wherever you are and going to live in Otago or Auckland or Christchurch or Wellington in order to get higher education. You are able to kind of do it where you are.
Well, I look forward to reading the story. Derek Fox, thank you for your time and best of luck for the future.
Kia ora.
Now that is our show for this week, so thank you to Derek Fox and thank you to our news review panellists, Paul Patrick, Richard Langston, Paul Norris and Trish Carter. And thank you for watching. We'll be back with Media 7 at the same time next week. Until then, goodbye.